All righty, let's do it on a Friday afternoon. Hello to all of you. Welcome into the Chico Borman Show here on the Big Play Sports Network. Michael Bohm producing. And, of course, over the next 2 hours, we have plenty to talk about. First of all, congratulations on making it to the weekend. Bohm, not just a football Friday, a football Friday. Woo! There you go. There you go. It's not officially a football Friday until we hear from Bohm. We got a lot of football to talk about over the next couple of hours, as you can imagine. The Browns and the Titans nearing Sunday, about 48 hours away from the Browns trying to get that bad taste out of their mouth in Pittsburgh. Not going to really be able to get that taste entirely out of your mouth, though, because Nick Chubb won't be returning this season. But this is, again, prime example of what happens in the NFL. The games must go on, and this is still, even with Nick Chubb out, this is still a team that has playoff aspirations. I think more than anything else right now, I look at this team and I say, we're going to find out not only about Deshaun Watson, because I think Deshaun has been, the topic of conversation, which I get, but, you've got to rally your troops. What is Kevin Stefanski? This is going to be a big test for Kevin Stefanski as well. Not just in, and I don't think you're revamping your offense, but clearly, as much as we say the offense was catered to Deshaun Watson, it is. It's not like you could just, go away, nor did you want to go away from 24. But now that Nick Chubb, unfortunately, won't be there the rest of the year, does Kevin Stefanski take this opportunity to entirely dedicate the offense and entirely make it about Deshaun Watson? That remains to be seen. And then, as I said, just leader of men. We can say that. Leader of men. How do these guys respond to the adversity? And, of course, Kevin Stefanski's leading that charge. But they've got the Titans coming up on Sunday. That will not be a gimme. We talked to yesterday, we talked to Chad Withrow from Outkick, and he was talking about how, the Titans, kind of a tale of two games. They come back last week and they beat the Chargers. And, yes, the Chargers have been struggling, but this is a Tennessee team that with, Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry and, DeAndre Hopkins. But I think more importantly, not so much on the offensive side of the ball, even though the focus will be on Derrick Henry. That is a very good defense. They've got two guys up front that can get to you. Simmons is a dynamic player. Bayard is on the back end. He's a great safety. So, this Tennessee team, and of course now smelling a little blood, being that, you don't have Nick Chubb, being that Jedrick Wills has struggled, being that you've got a rookie still at right tackle, although he's played well in DeJuan Jones. So we shall see. Coming up in just a bit, we are going to talk much more about this game on Sunday and much more about the Browns moving past and trying to get past the Nick Chubb injury. Brad Ward is a contributor for the OBR, the Orange and Brown Report, also host and producer of the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast. Had a chance to join him recently on his podcast, so he will be returning the favor here in just a bit. Get his thoughts on everything Browns. Coming up later in the show, 1:30. Boom, this isn't just a big NFL weekend. I guess it's always a big NFL weekend. This is last week was, as far as college football. I mean, it was okay. Obviously, you had Alabama go down, and you had Colorado. I thought was going to be a blowout with Colorado State, and Colorado State made it very interesting. But this week, oh yeah, we've got great games, and the headliner is none other then the Ohio State University Buckeyes taking on the University of Notre Dame. That's a 7:30 kick tomorrow night in South Bend. And I found it interesting. We'll talk to Bill Landis as we do each and every Friday. He'll join us at 1:30, covering it for Rivals and dotting the I's. But I found it interesting that Ryan Day said we're going to let it rip. Does that really mean Ryan Day's going to let it rip?
Yeah, I mean, can we really believe him? We gotta see it to believe it, Chico.
Yeah, and does let it rip, is his definition of let it rip the same definition as the fan base as far as let it rip? Is he willing? And this is a good Notre Dame team, an experienced Notre Dame team. A lot of the talk is Sam Hartman, and it should be, but they've got talent across the board. The thought is at the skill positions, obviously speed. Ohio State has you would think, a big advantage. Does Ryan Day try to use that full advantage and kind of cut the reins off of Kyle McCord? We'll wait and see until tomorrow night.
Chico, I think my biggest question really is actually on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, obviously there's a lot of questions surrounding what are you going to get out of Kyle McCord when the bright lights are shining, but the pass rush. I did not expect going into this season for my biggest question on the defensive side of the ball to be the pass rush. But those guys on the edge, JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer, they need to get more pressure, and they are going to be put to the test.
How many sacks do they have right now?
That's a great question. I mean, I can't, off the top of my head, recall any that they've gotten this season. Now, they've gotten some pressures.
I know going into Western Kentucky. Now, again, I think I said this last week because it was a topic last week. Indiana didn't even try to throw the ball. They just wanted to, try to, with the new rules, they wanted to try to run the ball and eat clock and not even give them a chance to defend the pass. And they, for the most part, didn't. So, Indiana didn't provide much of a test. Western Kentucky last week. So I think through two games, Youngstown State was in there. Through two games, the Buckeyes up front, they didn't have many opportunities against the pass, and the ones they did have, I don't think they had recorded a sack until last week. But you're right. This one, you've got Joe Alt on the offensive line, a stud left tackle, most likely will be a first.
Has not allowed a pressure this season.
Yeah, he is very, very good, great, but he also has not dealt with the likes of JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer. You got Hall there in the middle, but that's going to be a lot to talk about, and we will do so with Bill Landis coming up at 1:30 this afternoon. But a big weekend in college football in general. We got our Pick Six segment coming up a little less than an hour from now. Colorado and Oregon. I didn't know if I wanted to put Colorado again in the Pick Six, but Bohm, I can't. I can't look away. I can't stop. And they are undefeated. Granted, it was much closer than we all expected. I expected against Colorado State, and they should go down. This should be the week that Colorado goes down. They are not as talented up and down the roster and on both sides of the ball as Oregon is. Plus, Colorado is missing not only their best player, but one of the best players in all of college football in Travis Hunter. But give me more of Colorado. They're 21-point underdogs in this game against Oregon.
I didn't realize it was that big of a spread.
21. Oregon's good. Yeah, Oregon's good. You're hearing a lot of...
Who did Colorado beat week one? That was TCU?
Yes. But TCU, if you've watched TCU since... we knew it.
They had big shoes to fill at quarterback.
Yeah, and they just weren't across the board. They were nowhere near what they were a year ago. And, of course, a year ago they went to the national championship game. So, but, yeah, we got Colorado, Oregon on that slate. Also Ohio State, Notre Dame with Pick Six, and then 4 from the NFL slate as well. But I mentioned the other games. Oregon State, Washington State. I know it's Pac-12, but still pretty good. Iowa at Penn State. That'll be a whiteout affair. I don't know how many people will be watching it because it's tomorrow night at 7:30 on CBS. Not used to saying that. But, obviously Big Ten on CBS. But Iowa at Penn State. Drew Aller, this is going to be a good test for him as far as Iowa's defense. We know the offense for the Hawkeyes, not too good. But Drew Aller, he didn't have a bad week last week. he just wasn't as dominant. And at times, Illinois kind of, they showed some things. They flashed, as the kids say, on the defensive side of the ball. So we will see what happens with Iowa at Penn State. Ole Miss and Alabama is also on the docket tomorrow. Boom, Alabama, a 6.5-point favorite. Ole Miss, though, Lane Kiffin, 15th ranked team in the country. Alabama, 13. They dropped out of the top 10 for the first time, probably in 98 years, whatever it was. But here's the thing: Alabama has not dropped multiple home games since Nick Saban's first year at Alabama, which I think was 07. Does that sound about right? 07? So you're talking a long time since they dropped multiple games at Bryant-Denny Stadium. That could very well happen. Ole Miss is good. And Alabama right now, I'm hearing a lot of, well, Nick Saban, he's going to circle the troops. He always loves to coach hard. He's been mad in the past when he has been able to coach hard because his teams were so good and they were being fed that, as he liked to say, rat poison by the media. But now he can coach hard. This is not a good Alabama team on offense. Their secondary is a little suspect. Their quarterback, they're going back to Jalen Milroe after Buchanan didn't work out. Their offensive line's a mess. Okay wide receivers. Like, they've kind of dropped the ball on that side of the ball. Pardon the pun, but they have. So Alabama in danger of losing multiple home games for the first time since Nick Saban's first year at Alabama under Nick Saban. So this is, wow. This is going to be a biggie as well.
And they have Bill O'Brien is their offensive coordinator, correct?
Yes.
See, that's interesting. I wonder how much of that I haven't watched Alabama close enough outside of like that.
Well,
Texas game.
no. Bill O'Brien didn't. I thought Bill O'Brien went to.
Oh, did he go elsewhere?
I thought he went to New England, didn't he? Who's New England's? Yeah. Belichick brought back Bill O'Brien.
Okay, I wonder who their offensive coordinator is, but I'm curious as to like whether Alabama fans are putting any of that onus on the offensive coordinator because they are so stagnant right now. I mean, I put a lot of it on the quarterback play from what I've seen.
Well, they haven't recruited. They stopped. That's what a lot of people close to the program are saying. Because we're all like, well, wait a minute. What Alabama, kind of like Ohio State, but Alabama's seemingly had that line of great quarterbacks, and then all of a sudden it just kind of ended. And to hear some people tell it, either close to the program or recruiting analysts, they just kind of dropped the ball with the most important position, kind of said, we'll be all right, and they're not all right. Where I think it's interesting, you mentioned OC, defensive coordinator, Lane Kiffin is called out this week and said, I don't know if it's the same guy calling the plays. And so there's just a lot of drama around Alabama. Usually it's the good drama. This is not good drama in Tuscaloosa, but that's going to be a good one. And then, of course, tomorrow as well, UCLA. Great team, great young team. They've got to go on the road against a very good Utah team where it is, let's just say, a raucous atmosphere and face a very physical Utah team. So,
shout out to the Utes.
Yeah, there is a lot. But college football, this is one of those, you get ready at noon. Like, I don't want anything. I don't really have much to do tomorrow because I don't have much of a life. But that's okay. This is one of those times where I'm fine not having much of a life because I just want to R&R. I want to sit back and I want to enjoy for the better part of 12 hours, maybe even more than that, a lot of college football before we get ready for, of course, Sunday and the Browns and the Titans. And, well, right on cue, wouldn't you know it, Bohm? Right on cue as we get ready for the Browns and the Titans coming up on Sunday afternoon from Cleveland Brown Stadium. Don't forget, we will be live with our Big Play Game Day show. That'll come your way 10 to noon. And we're going to be out here at Burke Lakefront Airport. Prizes, food, all kinds of good stuff, breaking it down, getting ready for the 1 p.m. kick. This guy will be breaking it down as well, and he does so very, very well. An absolute pleasure to have him whenever we can get him. Brad Ward is a contributor for the OBR, the Orange and Brown Report, and also is the host of the give me the podcast name real quick, just so I don't mess it up here, Brad.
Oh, you're good. All eyes on Cleveland, man. We appreciate you coming on. You did a great job last week. That was a fun show.
Had a lot of fun with that, and always have fun talking Browns and NFL with you. All right, well, this was fun being the operative word. We didn't really have a whole lot of fun this week. We had a ton of fun after the Cincinnati game. From a defensive standpoint, it was just so good to see. The pass rush, the back end, everything was perfect. Okay, the offense, but they'll figure it out. And then of course, you get to Pittsburgh on Monday night, and before you could even really get settled in, Nick Chubb is out with the knee injury and out for the season. So I guess it's obvious we got to start there. How much do things change offensively for the Cleveland Browns without Nick Chubb the rest of the season?
I think, Chico, that you want them to change a lot, right? So it's kind of a complex thing, right? So that, we heard all offseason about this new offense, right? Or this new iteration of the offense, the Watson-friendly offense, right?
Yeah. What exactly is that supposed to be?
For me, that's a lot of shotgun, almost all shotgun, RPOs. They're getting Elijah Moore the ball in space, bubble screens, just kind of letting him sit back and view the field. But we haven't seen that. They had to pivot because of weather week 1. Makes sense, right?
Right.
They were more equipped to pivot to that, the older Stefanski style, the 13 personnel, the 12 personnel, lots of tight ends, run the ball with Nick Chubb and win the game. That was a good call. Well, guess what? Week 2, we saw more of the same, even until he got hurt and after, really, right? You're still seeing Watson get up under center and turn his back to the defense and play action.
And that's not what he likes to do, right? I mean, if he had his druthers, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at least that's the impression that we got, right? He did interviews where he said, they're giving me the keys to the offense, which is where this gets a little confusing because this new offense looks a lot like the old offense so far. So does the Nick Chubb injury force them to lean into that shotgun, heavy RPO, more of the Houston style, looking like what he ran in Houston? I don't know, but it seems like Stefanski is hesitant to go all that way. He seems to kind of be backpedaling to what he's used to. I think it might be because maybe he looks and watches Deshaun and says he's not ready yet for that.
Is part of it he's not ready? Because I think in that, what you just said, and we've all heard that about Deshaun Watson, and I've kind of got the keys to the offense and taken over. Do you think that maybe if that, what you described, does happen, that kind of takes, well, let's face it, the keys transfer from Kevin to Deshaun? And I'm not saying that Kevin doesn't have input, but I guess the less input Kevin Stefanski would have in the offense, the less confident he is probably that he is, I would think, that the offense is going to run well without him. That's just the sense I get.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think he's hesitant to do it. He's always kind of been a guy that wants it to go his way. I was critical. Been a big Stefanski fan, right?
But he's frustrating.
He's incredibly frustrating. And Chico, in this game on Monday night, I mean, have a feel for the game, guy, right? You didn't have to. It was 2nd and 9 with about 7 minutes in the fourth quarter. Not to rehash this again, because we've been through this probably all week, right? But it was 2nd and 9 with about 7 minutes in the fourth quarter. and he goes 7-step drop and leaves Wills in a one-on-one, backed up in your own end. Listen, at that point, the Steelers weren't moving the ball at all. We weren't moving the ball at all. I mean, just there's about 100 other things he could have done there that are safer and get you out of there with a punt, which is all you really need to get out of there with a win. Just don't turn it over in your own end and give them an easy score, and you probably win the game. So have a feel for that, right? Like, but you can't rewrite. I mean,
Well, and then he went up tempo. Remember? I mean, he had the lead. Remember, then they go up tempo, and it's just there seems to be, because I'm with you. Like, I do think there's no doubting. I don't think anyone, even the worst critic, the biggest critic of Kevin Stefanski, I don't think the biggest critic can say he doesn't have a brilliant offensive mind. But that's not the end all be all. Like, sometimes you can. You know that you have a great offensive mind, and here, let me demonstrate just how great it is. And sometimes it gets a little too cute. It comes down to an option on 3rd and 1 when just sneak it. I don't know. And I'm not even some football savant, for Christ's sake, but I mean, that seems like a pretty decent option. But then, like I said, then you go up tempo and you have the lead. So why are you, there's certain things that, to go back to what I said earlier, there are just certain things that he does during the course of a ball game, Kevin Stefanski, that does have you baffled.
Yeah, I was baffled. Just manage the game at that point. Like, if you can get out of there with an ugly win, I just want to say it's okay to win ugly, Kevin, right? Like, it's okay to win ugly sometimes. It doesn't always have to be pretty. Get out of there with an ugly win. Exercise all those demons, the trends, the 20-0s, the 2003, the 1993 2-0, all those trends that were going against them. Just, wouldn't that have been nice after the devastating night that it already was with Nick Chubb? But instead, we compound that by getting cute in your own end or being aggressive when you don't need to be, because your defense is playing fantastic. Now, maybe he needs to get used to having a good defense, Chico. I don't know, right? Maybe that's the transition. But put some trust in those guys. They've been terrific so far. I mean, he could probably kneeled it 3 times and punted it for the rest of that game, and they would have got out of there with a win. I mean, I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at with that game.
Just to elaborate on the defense for a moment, just to give a little bit of context to what you're saying, because they have been unbelievable. I mean, I know it's only 2 games, but we know what they did against Cincinnati and Burrow with all-time lows across the board. Pittsburgh did not have, like you say, well, how did the Browns play in the red zone? I don't know. Pittsburgh was never there. They didn't have to be. Like, I mean, that is absolutely befuddling. And you say, well, if that's going to be the case, that going into the game, we're feeling pretty good about a Browns W. And I know there are some turnovers that weren't necessarily Deshaun's fault. I'm just saying, in general, your defense has been not just good, not just great, elite. They shouldn't be 1-1. They just shouldn't be 1-1.
They have been elite. You've gotten great performances from Grant Delpit. You've turned them over. You just haven't kept. I mean, they just did such silly things. Like, I mean, I'm sure you guys have hashed out the Harrison Bryant play 1. Well, Kevin's known for his scripted plays. Chico, they had to know they were running that play for 3 days. How are you not on the same page with the guy? And why is play 1 of the game
to Harrison Bryant?
To Harrison Bryant, what, tight end 3? I'm just puzzled by all of this a little bit, right? It's a little weird. And, back to what we started with, the offense just looks very much like what it was before, what it's always been. Now, that at times they do some different stuff, right? It's a little different. But, like, the RPO heavy, shotgun heavy, using Elijah Moore in exotic ways, it just hasn't been there. And I think that's partially on Stefanski, but it's a little bit on Watson too, because he looks lost, right? Like, he's not seeing the field well, to say the very least, right? And until he's like Stefanski sees that, maybe then he can lean into it more. But I feel like that's what's holding everything back a little bit.
Talking to Brad Ward, you can follow him on Twitter at Ward on Sports, contributor for the OBR, the Orange and Brown Report, host, producer of All Eyes on Cleveland. That's All Eyes on CLE podcast. You can check that out on Twitter. Okay, I want to get into some stuff because some stuff, I wouldn't say it's easy to see, but you're just using your eyeballs and breaking down what you're seeing as far as formations, as far as play calls and all of that. There is something with Deshaun Watson, with everything that's gone on, that we can't just say and limit it to, okay, well, he's just when the pressure's here or when he reads this, when they're in this formation. Part of me feels, I brought this up before, I don't like to go down this road, but he's been through a lot for his own doing, and I'm one of those that, like, when I cringed a little bit when he referred to it, I believe a few months ago or few weeks ago, as his ordeal. Like, don't do that. That's not going to win you any more fans. But does he have a problem, really putting that aside, compartmentalizing, as we know all the great athletes can do? Does he have a problem not being well-liked? I mean, and I'm not saying, just if you don't play well here, okay, the hometown fans aren't going to like you. Let's face it, Deshaun Watson, for the foreseeable future, whatever stadium he's in, they're going to be, and I'm not just saying booing him, they're going to have that's what it's going to be week in and week out. There are certain guys that don't handle that stuff very well, and I don't know if Deshaun Watson's one of those guys.
Listen, I 100% think you're on to something. I don't know. I don't spend time with Deshaun Watson. I have no idea where he's at mentally, for sure. But from where we sit and what we watch, it would certainly appear that he is having some issues with this transition. And it's hard to blame him. I'll take that back. It's not hard to blame him because it was self-inflicted. But if you take the fact that it was a self-inflicted situation out of it, it was a lot to go through for any human being, right? Like, to go from being widely respected, everywhere you go, being, the ultimate leader and gentleman, everything you've done in every phase of your life, to hated almost universally, and people rooting against you and wanting you to fail at every turn. That's a lot, man. I talked last night on my show about Tiger Woods' fall from grace, right?
Funny, I've brought that up as well. I want to hear what you had to say.
Yeah, it took him a long time to get back, Chico. Did it take him years to get back from that? I mean, and that it's just I don't think we can pin down when mentally this is going to be he's going to find a comfort zone in being the villain.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's okay. And just to take it one step further, because I'm not gonna dive too far into the weeds on this, but I myself did go into the weeds with this early in the week because I was so, upset with everything the way it played out. I've mentioned LeBron. Now I want to be clear. When I mention LeBron, we're not talking about a scandal. We're not talking about anything like that. But like, one of the things, and I'm going to use this as a positive with LeBron, when he left the first time, there is no doubt in my mind he had no idea that he was not going to be beloved or at least rooted for or accepted in other markets when he played for the Miami Heat. But because of the way it did go down and people in his ear, his team, about, let's do it this way, and which backfired tremendously, he gets to Miami, and I mean, I think he'd be the first one to tell you, like, okay, to some degree, I'm going to get criticized, and to some degree, I'm going to get vitriol from fan bases because I am LeBron James. I'm the top dog, and people are going to boo me in their arenas. This was about, we don't like the way you went about that thing in Cleveland, and I think it really ate at him. Like, some guys do not thrive at all being the villain. Some do. Kobe can do it, could do it. and MJ, and again, I don't want to make them out to be bad guys, but I'm saying, okay, hey, there's a scandal, or they're getting booed, or even Tiger. I thought he played. Some of that was physical too, but I thought from a mental standpoint, like some guys can put the blinders on and go get it. So that's what I'm saying. These are all things that we can sit here and watch film and hear guys breaking down film, watch these games every week, and still not really know what's going on between the ears and how comfortable is he in his own skin.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's there's a lot of layers to this. It's a lot more than just Listen, so on the field, I feel a little bit like Chico, like the game needs to slow down for him again, right? Like, you know how rookies talk about the transition to the NFL and the moment the game kind of slows down for them and they see it again at their pace and it starts to click for them. I don't think that moment has happened since missing the game for 700 days yet for Deshaun Watson. He doesn't look comfortable. He doesn't appear to be seeing the field well or trusting his eyes, I guess, or what he sees down the field. So I don't think the game has slowed down for him yet. Certainly, I think it will. But there's layers to this. To your point, I think there is a lot going on mentally. And I think that's clear if you just follow the breadcrumbs of the guy whispering in his ear on the sidelines before Monday Night Football for the visualization coach and
Troy Aikman laughing about it.
Right. Like, I mean, like I get visualization and a lot of guys use it. Sure, that's great. But I've never seen anybody have a coach or a partner, doing it for you. Whatever it takes. I don't care. Right. Like whatever it takes, man. But I think you're absolutely onto something that this is more than just on the field. This is a lot to get over. Like I was talking last night, like almost more than certainly he needed the therapy and everything that he was given by the league, but like almost more than that, like maybe he needs to sit down with a guy like Mike Vick and be like, what was it like for you to be hated and how did you rehabilitate your image, right? Like somebody that has successfully gone from hated, did something really bad to back in favorable light by the general public, right? And how did you get there? What did you have to do along the way? Like what did you have to ignore and put, you know what I mean? Like
Totally.
Sometimes the guys that can get you there are the guys that have been through it the most, right? Like, so they know the way out. So that is something maybe that would help him along the way. Just a thought.
As we go back to the football field, and of course Sunday, Browns and Titans looking to move to 2-1. Then they've got Baltimore, of course, before the early bye in the season. Every team moving forward, one, they're well aware that there's no Nick Chubb, so that makes it a little bit easier. They're also aware, and I don't think this is any kind of a news flash, Jed Wills on the left side has been a huge liability, and he was one of those topics, Brad, and I'm sure you encountered this as well, that, in the offseason we were we had to be. What's going to happen with Cade York? And then, hey, how's Deshaun look in the offense? And how's the new look Jim Schwartz defense? But, they picked up that option for Jed Wills, and this is his opportunity to, if he plays well, dude's going to get paid a lot of money. How much of this is, well, hey, Cincinnati and Pittsburgh are pretty good and very good as far as rushing the passer. How much of this for you, just you watching this team, are you saying, man, this guy, this is a huge, huge trouble spot moving forward and not quite sure how the Browns deal with that?
I would say that exactly. I think this is a huge, huge trouble spot. We have seen his best year in the NFL was his rookie year, and we have seen regression in every year that he played. And like last year when they picked up his option, we could make the case, Chico, that it's hard to find a league average tackle, aren't a dime a dozen in the NFL. So if you want to pick up his option and pay him what it looks like a lot of money, but it's really about league average for a starting left tackle in the NFL, right? Whatever the his option is, 14 million or something like that, right?
Right.
So, okay, right? It's hard to find a league average guy, and he's been league average, although he appears to be stopping plays early and watching things happen around him, which makes it look a lot worse. To this year now, where it appears that he is a complete liability to me.
Yeah, that's the word. That's the word that
Yeah.
I keep using. And I just don't, and I'm not trying to make this point as a point of emphasis, or I should say to make my point stronger. But honest to God, I trust DeJuan Jones, a rookie, more than I trust Jed Wills. And that's scary to say. I mean, but it's the truth.
By far. I mean, he played a much better game on Monday night. And, I mean, Wills in 2 weeks is basically, and it's hard. You don't want to blame him for the Conklin injury, but it happened because he got smoked off that side. He lost this game in week 2 because he got smoked off that side, right? Like, he said he didn't get the snap count right, but literally Highsmith went untouched to the quarterback, right? But the problem is, what is the solution, right? Like, I think for the time being, you just have to help him almost anytime you want to make sure you can get a drop to throw the ball deep down the field.
Yeah.
It's insane, but you've got to almost chip on that side, and you got a rookie on the other side. So it's not like it's easy, like, oh, this is the only area of the line that we need to worry about. In pass protection, Wyatt Teller has struggled. Wills has struggled, and you've got a rookie at right tackle.
Yep.
The offensive line in pass protection has been not very good. In the run game, they're terrific, right? But in pass protection, they've not been very good as a whole. And those are the weak spots. So if you want to chip or give him tight end help, that's what you're going to have to do. But it's just crazy that you can't even feel like you can leave him alone for a play, and it cost you the game the other night, right?
Yeah.
And who on the roster do you want to give a shot? I'm willing. I mean, do you want to bring Neshke up from the 37-year-old
The reality is, I don't think there's anything they can do. I mean, I just there's Jed Wills. Jed Wills has to put his big boy pants on, and I know it's easy for me to say from this desk, but Jed Wills is again, he's played some very tough defensive lines and pass rushers the last 2 weeks, first 2 weeks of the season, but he's got to be better. And if he's not, it's going to be tough. All right, real quick before we let you go, Brad, and we appreciate your time as always. Tennessee Titans come to town on Sunday. Mike Vrabel, this is one game where, the Browns are a better team. They're more talented, but Mike Vrabel is going to have something cooked up. That defense is pretty good. They get after it on the D-line. Back to what we just said about Jed Wills and company. They've got a stud in the secondary. How do you give us a thumbnail sketch of the Tennessee Titans, how you see this one playing out on Sunday afternoon?
Listen, you nailed it right. They are stout against the run. They can rush the passer. Their secondary is a little suspect, right? Like I think they're worse yardage wise, but there is some correlation between stopping the run, like being number one, stopping the run, and forcing another team to throw a ton on you, right? So those numbers are a little bit skewed. I think they would, from people I've talked to this week in the Titans, I did a behind the enemy lines piece and talked to a couple people that cover the Titans. They feel like the secondary is much better than the numbers say, right? With Roger McCreary and stuff. And I can see that, right, a little bit. But it's going to be the same theme, Chico. It's going to be make Deshaun Watson beat us until he proves us he can do it, right? Like, they're going to stop the run. You've got Jerome Ford and Hunt. So if they are really good against the run, like very good. And Vrabel gets the best out of his team, and they will be ready to play 100%. So they probably slow the run, and you're probably going to have to get something from your pass game. That's just where I'm at. So if he, and that even goes back to the beginning of our conversation. We'll take it full circle, like a friggin' Seinfeld episode here, right? Like,
good reference, by the way. Very
right?
good reference, Brad.
We'll go back to the beginning. What does the offense look like when they are forced to throw on Sunday, right? Is it 13 personnel, heavy play action, or is Watson in the gun and they're letting him rip it? Should be interesting.
He is Brad Ward. Follow him on Twitter. I almost said follow him on sports. Yeah, you can follow him on sports too, but specifically on Twitter at Ward on Sports. Of course, contributor for OBR. Check out the podcast. He does a great job there, host and producer. All eyes on CLE. Always a pleasure, buddy. We'll do it again soon. And by the way, nice look today. Like I couldn't, Bohm, you could probably pull off the look that Brad Ward has. I wouldn't be able to. Like that's kind of that's, as the kids would say, that's a G look. Am I using it right, Bohm? Am I using it right?
That's the first time I've heard anyone say a G look, but
like he's got the black hat, the gray, like the over.
That's a sharp jacket right there.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll take it as a compliment. The G look, I'll take it. Chico, anytime.
I wouldn't do that because I don't really know exactly what I'm saying when I say things that I think the kids are saying. So, yeah, Bohm's probably right. He's never heard it. So, you look good, dude. You look good. Good work.
Thanks, brother.
And we will talk to you again real soon, pal. Thank you.
You're the man, Chico. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Again, Brad Ward. Follow him on Twitter at Ward on Sports. All right, before we step aside, we're going to have a little fair foul when we come back. Don't forget, we also have Pick 6 brought to you by our boys at Tipico. Coming up top of the hour, bottom of the 1 o'clock hour, 1:30. Oh, yeah, another big football game this weekend. Ohio State and Notre Dame. Buckeyes are favored, not by much. Notre Dame, this is not the same Notre Dame team from last year. And it's a much better team. It's a much more experienced team. Marcus Freeman more experienced. Ryan Day saying he's going to let it fly. He's going to let it rip is exactly what he said. Bill Landis will let it rip coming up at 1:30 from Rivals. Want to let you know, before we step aside, you can catch us. There are so many different ways you can find us here. Not only this show, but all of us here at Big Play Sports. Catch us on iHeartRadio. Download the iHeart app. Search Big Play under Live Radio and listen. You've got the Matt Fontana Show. He's on before I am, as you know now, live from 9 a.m. to 11. Chico Borman Show, that would be me, noon to 2. All Big Play shows stream replays throughout the day. So if you missed it, you got a chance to do it. See it again on the iHeart app. So download that right now. We're also on TV. Bally Sports Great Lakes and Bally Sports Ohio. The Bernie Kosar Show with Hanford Dixon. Top dog and number 19 there. You got The Return with Josh and Maria Cribbs. People are loving that show. Two very, very talented people. One guy who was pretty darn good in his days here. And then we also have Bohm, something you're very excited about. And we're all excited about as Buckeyes. The Bobby Carpenter Show with Anthony Slagle, as those two gentlemen, former linebackers, break down each and every Ohio State game, and they will do so following the Notre Dame game. When can folks watch that again, Bohm?
Yeah, that's going to drop Sunday evening around 8 p.m., and then you can also catch it on Bally's throughout the week.
Yeah, so, I mean, all kinds of good stuff. Find all our shows live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, on-demand shows, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Also, check out bigplay.com for our latest merchandise offers. And, yeah, seriously, bigplay.com, I'm going to be pumping the hell out of this, not just because I'm a company guy and I'm trying to kiss Cody's ass, because Cody is outstanding. These T-shirts that are popping up, people are starting to notice. Go to the website, bigplay.com. You see things like the Jose shirts after the Tim Anderson fight. You see no drinking in the Muti lot with the little the funny Leo character on. All of those are Cody, and you can have those. You can buy them as gifts. Certainly, really the holidays aren't that far away. BigPlay.com for our latest merchandise offers and Tipico Big Play Boost. The Big Play Network, where you want it, how you want it, when you want it. The new way, Boom, of enjoying entertainment. Also entertaining is Fair or Foul with Mr. Bombastic. We'll do that when we come back. Chico Borman Show on a Friday right here on the Big Play Sports Network. My buddy Mr. Bombastic likes to play the long game. I'll leave it at that. Welcome back. Chico Borman Show on this Friday.
Friday.
Woo! There you go. We're excited. It's been a rough week. I mean, let's face it. It's okay. It's been a rough week. We all kind of in mourning this week with the loss of Nick Chubb, and he's out for the season. Nothing is the cure. Nothing cures for what ails you. What am I trying to say, Boom? There is no better cure for what ails you than a Browns victory on Sunday. Of course, I could get greedy and say an Ohio State victory Saturday night against Notre Dame and a Browns victory on Sunday. So we got a lot of good stuff coming this weekend. Hopefully, we'll be able to put Monday night in Pittsburgh in the rearview mirror. But before that, we have a little fair or foul with my buddy Michael, Mr. Bombastic.
Chico, we need Ohio to assert its dominance on the rest of the country this
That
weekend.
would be nice. Yeah, that would be nice.
Ohio versus the world, baby. Let's get it. All right. Well, I want to start things off talking a little Chicago Bears. The Bears, because... All right, I mean, there's a lot of drama coming out of Chicago.
Ooh,
obviously,
wow.
like
Yeah.
the Justin Fields comments, and then he was seen, by the way, hugging his offensive coordinator, and he made sure to pose with for cameras, like hugging his OC.
Definitely
I thought that was cute.
Little publicity stuff. That's all right.
But no, I want to talk about actually how Devin White, linebacker for Tampa Bay, was talking to newly acquired wide receiver DJ Moore on the field during their matchup, and White was mic'd up, right? And he's telling him, like, oh, they ain't using you right. I think I believe was what he said. And you can hear DJ Moore caught on mic saying, oh, tell me about it. Now, nothing crazy, right, of course, but fair or foul, Chico, this could be the start of some drama brewing surrounding receiver DJ Moore and that Chicago Bears franchise.
You know, I'm going to say foul on that only because I think when you've reached a point where you've had your quarterback call out the coaching staff and then, walk it back, and I don't think he was entirely wrong, by the way, but anyway, that happened. Your defensive coordinator just abruptly resigns, and then there's feds at his house, and then there's rumored to be feds at Hallis Hall. Like, I'm going to say that DJ Moore not happy with how nobody's happy with how things are going. So, yeah, I don't think nobody's happy with the Bears if DJ Moore. I mean, it wouldn't be the right thing to do if you're DJ Moore because, you're not helping. And if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem, as I love to say. And I think DJ Moore is very, very talented, but I think everybody knows. I mean, if Justin Fields isn't playing well, he's not being coached well, then DJ Moore's probably not being used very well or playing as well as he can. So, yeah, I'm going to go foul on that, though. I don't think it's the next bit of drama. It's just part of what's going on in Chicago. What a hot mess of garbage it is in the Windy City right now.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, as you know, I am a Justin Fields fan, and so I just hate to see a quarterback put through this tumultuous turmoil, Chico.
Tumultuous turmoil.
I mean, you called it a dumpster fire. It's basically the same thing.
No, I'm just always amused by
perplexed.
Sometimes
awestruck.
I would say I'm always amused by you always want to put some sort of wordsmith dent into it. So the tumultuous turmoil is what you are calling what's going on in Chicago.
I'm a weird worder. What can I say?
That's okay.
That being said,
yes,
I did want to ask you about. Hold on, I lost my. Oh yeah, Donovan Mitchell. Right. So.
All right.
Chico, Brian Windhorst came out and said that Donovan Mitchell is not going to be signing a contract extension this offseason. Now, I saw some Cavs fans were freaking out, like, oh, he's as good as gone. Fair or foul, Chico, nothing has changed in Donovan Mitchell sweepstakes, and he could still very well end up as a Cleveland Cavalier for long term.
Fair. I mean, this is as simple as saying, has anything changed? Have we heard anything? No? Okay, fine. Guys want options. I mean, it's nothing new. Giannis, I mean, you can. It's one thing. I have no problem with fans being concerned and going, wow, of course. I mean, in a perfect world, he does sign the extension and we're not worried about it. All I'm saying, though, is you don't need to go the other way and be like, well, you might as well trade him now. He's as good as gone. Like, I don't know. I think the team has a chance this year to do, some big things. Hopefully learned a lot, got tougher from last year. And, yeah, Donovan Mitchell didn't play his best basketball when it counted the most, but people were going crazy about that. Just who he's seen playing golf with, for God's sake. No, he's not going to sign an extension anytime soon. Let's see how the season plays out. And by the way, it's not that far away.
Chico, Cavs Twitter might be the most extreme of the three Cleveland sports.
No.
I mean, Kobe Altman getting an OVI. Fire him. Get his ass out of town. And everything with Donovan Mitchell, all the drama, it's gotten pretty ridiculous, in my opinion. But with that said, I will digress and commence forth here on today's Friday edition of Fair or Foul. All right, Chico. Now, this, I'm assuming, dropped before the Kareem Hunt news, but it was a projected or a proposed trade from ESPN, right? And for Jonathan Taylor, and it said Cleveland Browns 2024 second-round pick for Jonathan Taylor. Now, I'm not asking you whether the Browns should attempt that trade, but what I'm asking you in general is because we've heard the Colts had a very high asking price, maybe even too high of an asking price for Jonathan Taylor, and he is on the PUP list. But fair or foul, a second-round pick would get you a healthy Jonathan Taylor.
If he is, no, I don't think so. I think if it's, put it this way, I think if it's going to be one second rounder or not multiple second rounders or multiple picks, if it's going to be a second rounder, then you're going to have to throw a player in there. I saw one where the Dolphins send a second rounder and I think one of their safeties to Indy for Jonathan Taylor. The problem is we don't know. Again, the one thing that hasn't gone away in all of this is he wants to get paid. He wants a contract extension. So whoever's trading for him, if you're giving away a lot, giving up a lot, you know, you can say, well, we're all in for this year. But like Nick Chubb, for instance, for the Browns, like, okay, are you really going to trade big assets and then would you be essentially waving goodbye to Nick Chubb because you'd have to get Jonathan Taylor? So that ain't going to go over well. So, no, I don't think it's just one second round pick that you get a healthy Jonathan Taylor. But yes,
yeah, especially considering the stubbornness of Jim Irsay, I don't expect
yes
that would net you.
Good point. Good point.
JT. With that said, Chico, I want to transition to college ball now. Get your stance on something because I thought it was interesting, and I really, frankly, don't hate the gesture in the slightest. But so Washington State University athletic director Pat Shun spoke to media yesterday and alluded to, as they get ready to take on Oregon State, the fact that the band is going to be playing the Oregon State fight song as an ode to respect, and because they're both going to be in this fight together. Fair or foul, Chico?
When you say in this fight together, you mean the Pac-12. So people.
Well, they're going to be fighting against each other. It's like a collective fight between the two teams, I think is what he meant. But I do think it was a gesture of solidarity for Pac-12
that's
as
what
well.
Yeah, well, that's a big difference between.
But he was talking specifically about the matchup.
Okay, all right.
With that said, Chico, fair or foul, a college band, marching band, playing an opposing team's fight song when you're playing against them?
Yeah. Fair. What's like the conference is in.
If Ohio State played the Wolverines fight song,
would I like it? Okay, no. But in this case, you're asking me about Oregon and Washington, Oregon State and Washington State, and I'm saying I don't think it's that big of a deal.
But you would think it was a big deal for a rivalry.
Yeah, I mean, it's a stupid question. Like, who cares? Who cares?
All right, Chico. Well, sticking with college football.
Please, yeah.
Steel Chambers is currently ranked as the first. He has the highest grade amongst linebackers in college football per Pro Football Focus.
Right.
Fair or foul, Chico, do you think that Steel Chambers, and I think it's just crazy the fact that he's transitioned from, he came into Ohio State as a running back.
Yes.
And now he's become maybe their best linebacker on what looks to be a strong defense. Fair or foul, Chico, Steel Chambers could work his way as a NFL first-round pick.
First-round pick?
Yes.
Ooh. I haven't seen that. I mean, I don't see. There are certain things that, like, just because a guy is a great college player, and yes, he's evolving. I mean, Tommy Eichenberg's pretty good too. When you start talking about first-round picks, there are certain traits that you may have in college that don't translate over to the NFL, and I'm not going to pretend to know if he has everything NFL scout. I haven't seen him on like a big board. I haven't seen him on like a first round mock draft, but So I would go foul on that, but, he could play his way into that, I guess, yes.
All right, Chico. I'll wrap it there.
All right, Bone.
That'll do it for today's Fair Foul.
All right, that's it for Fair Foul. Thank you. We will take a break. When we come back, pick 6, 2 from the college slate, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Colorado, and Oregon, 4 from the NFL games coming up this weekend, and we will do that. All the spreads, of course, courtesy of our friends at Tipico. We'll have that, and then breaking down in detail Ohio State and Notre Dame, 6 versus 9 in South Bend. This is a biggie. Ryan Day says we're going to let it rip. We'll see if Bill Landis is buying into that. We'll talk to him at 1:30. It's the Chico Borman Show. More to come right here on the Big Play Sports Network. Well, folks, we are always looking for bet credits for football season. The Big Play Network is presented by Tipico Sportsbook, and they've got you covered. Tipico Sportsbook app has your traditional bets like the money line, spread, and point totals, but you can also lock in player props and check out our Big Play Boost every single week to back your favorite Cleveland teams and athletes, and even a little more fun to it, with the best odds in Ohio. Get in the action, load up for football season using promo code BIGPLAY150. You can also use promo code CHICO150 to get $150 of bet credits on us, plus a $30 dog pound bet. Bet with the Big Play crew all season long with Tipico Sportsbook. And speaking of Tipico Sportsbook, it's time for Pick 6 on a Friday, brought to you by, well, Tipico. All right, so we are going to start, as we always do, on the college slate. We've got 2 from college football and then 4 from the NFL games. These spreads all courtesy of our friends at Tipico. I tried, because there are a lot of good games this weekend in college football. So I could have had Oregon State and Washington State, where Bo mentioned the fight song thing and that whole deal. Could have had Iowa and Penn State. Drew Aller trying to bounce back, look good. That's a good Penn State offense. At home, white out against Iowa. Horrible offense, great defense. Ole Miss, Alabama, I thought about as well. Bama could be losing multiple home games for the first time under Nick Saban since his first year coaching Alabama, which I believe was back in 2007. But we didn't go that route because, we just can't get enough of it. I can't get enough of this guy. I mean, I actually pick these games. Not because it's like a game that I feel, this is no doubt, this is a big winner, but because I think it's going to be a great game and a very interesting matchup. Colorado, prime time, on the road at Oregon. Both teams 3-0. Colorado 19th in the country, Oregon 10th in the country. The Ducks are laying 21 points. Many people are saying this is when the air gets, because I don't think the air goes completely out for Colorado. It's still a good football team. It's still Deion Sanders with a good football team. So, it's not like, okay, well, after this week, nobody's going to be talking about Colorado. Especially because the following week, they've got USC. But Colorado at Oregon, minus 21. Oregon is very, very good on both sides of the ball. They clearly are the better team. Colorado, yes, they've got some good players. Yes, they have some good talent. But with all due respect to Shedeur Sanders, their best player, Travis Hunter, will not play in this game. The guy that goes 2 ways, you probably saw last week, the cheap hit out of bounds. He's out for a few weeks. I'm tempted to take Oregon, laying the 21. Oregon wins outright, but I'm going to say Colorado covers 20. Colorado's going to make it interesting. I'll say it'll be 17-point margin. So give me Colorado getting 21 points at Oregon. Boom, who you got?
I'm with you, Chico. I think Colorado covers. That's a massive spread. And while I think Oregon is a good team this year, I don't think they're great. And it's certainly one of the better programs out there as far as how they've started the season. But Colorado is going to be a test for them. I mean, even though Oregon on paper is the better squad, and there is no Travis Hunter, which is massive, by the way.
Huge. Yeah. Yep.
I still think that Colorado is going to come out and give them some fight, and I'm going to take them to cover that huge spread.
Okay, so Colorado and Oregon, the next game on our list here is a biggie, and it has plenty of local flavor. Ohio State, 6th in the country. The Buckeyes come in 3-0. Notre Dame, the Fighting Irish, under former Buckeye linebacker Marcus Freeman. The Fighting Irish come in 3-0 as well, 9th in the country. The Fighting Irish are getting 3 points at home in South Bend against Ryan Day and the Buckeyes. I'll tell you what, Bohm, I'll let you go first on this one. Notre Dame, I think we all know what that answer is going to be, but we'll get it out of the way here. Notre Dame is getting 3 points at home against Ohio State. Who you got?
How I envision this game to unfold is that it will stay within that 3-point window for the majority of the game, especially as it gets late. But I expect Ohio State to pull away at the very end, thus breaking that 3-point that Notre Dame is being given.
Okay. That's fair. I think that's a very reasonable guess prediction. I'm going to take Notre Dame getting 3. I think this is a nail biter and a late field goal in South Bend. I think Notre Dame is going to give Ohio State everything they want, everything they could ask for. This is not the same Notre Dame team from a year ago. And, yeah, I know Ohio State is better across the board. But at the one position that that is really obviously most important, they are not. Kyle McCord has great potential. Kyle McCord has a lot of talent. Sam Hartman, he's not going to be overwhelmed playing in this game. This guy has played. He was with Wake Forest for, 5-6 years. This guy has close to 60 starts under his belt, okay? Now, it is Ohio State. It is under the lights. It is at home, and the crowd's going to be going nuts, but Sam Hartman will not be daunted. He's got a very good offensive line. Joe Alt, we've talked about. I do think Notre Dame hasn't seen the likes of JT Tuimoloau or
Jack Sawyer
or
Mike Hall.
I know, Bohm. I know. Settle down. Or Mike Hall in the middle. Also some safety blitzes. You could see Sonny Styles coming. I mean, I think Jim Knowles will be dialing some things up. I also think that he's going to take some chances with guys one-on-one, and this is where, okay, how does Sam Hartman answer that? And the other thing, and we'll talk in detail with Bill Landis coming up bottom of the hour, is then Ohio State offensively. Ryan Day has said, because it's been a question in Columbus all week. I was listening to some Columbus radio. I have friends of mine that I went to school with that are still there, and I talked to them, and they said, yeah, the question going around, the $1 million question is Ryan Day going to kind of take off the training wheels and let Kyle McCord do his things with the likes of Marvin Harrison Jr., Emeka Ibuka, Cade Stover's had a great start to the year at tight end, other wideouts, Julian Fleming. I mean, it's, they're loaded. Will Ryan Day, now he has said, we're going to let it rip. Do we believe Ryan Day is going to let it rip, or do we believe our definition of letting it rip, meaning he's going to take shots downfield, that's exactly what they're going to do? I think when push comes to shove, Ryan Day is going to get conservative in this game. And, Ohio State's run game, one thing that they've changed, and they did change for the Western Kentucky game, we'll talk to Bill about this as well, is they do a lot of, gap protection, gap blocking, I should say, which my understanding for an offensive lineman is much, much more difficult. Now, with an experienced offensive line, not that big of a deal. This is not an experienced offensive line. So, and I like this, last week, Ohio State basically said, let's simplify things. Let's go back to more of a zone blocking scheme, which is much easier for these guys, and it worked. And I think they go back to that more against Notre Dame. Obviously, Notre Dame is better than Western Kentucky. But I really do believe that this is going to be a game. Notre Dame is winning late, 26-24, 27-26, something like that. And Ohio State needs the late field goal to win it. So they beat Notre Dame outright, but I think Notre Dame covers that 3, getting 3 at home against the Buckeyes.
Yeah, and I think for Ohio State, I mean, obviously the biggest key is going to be what do you get from McCord, but they got to apply some pressure on that veteran quarterback in Hartman, because you can rattle him, you can get to him, you can make him see ghosts, feel that pressure.
How do you know you can make him feel good?
If you're all up in his grill, Chico.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, but the experience does, you can say
absolutely.
You can rattle him. He's not going to be rattled just walking out on the floor, on the field in a sold-out environment. And
of course.
So, yeah, I mean, and I think I think Ohio State feels like, and they should, okay, Notre Dame's played 3 games, and yes, Sam Hartman has a lot of starts under his belt. Like I said, 60. And that's the huge difference across everybody, including Marcus Freeman, has a year. Like not last year, it was very, well, we're going to give it our best shot. But, Notre Dame, they weren't ready to play on that stage against that Ohio State team. And I think now still Ohio State has the edge in talent, but it's different, and it's much different. I mean, I mentioned this yesterday with Chad Withrow from Outkick, that, you look at some of the quarterback situations going on right now around the country, and like Alabama probably wishes they had Sam Hartman right about now, because they've been going back and forth from Milroe to Buchanan, now back to Milroe, I believe, this week for the game against Ole Miss. And Notre Dame played their cards right. They bring in this veteran, and I think the moment will not be too big. Will Ohio State's pass rush rise to the occasion, which it really hasn't? And some of that, as we said earlier, is not on them, because you've had teams that we don't want to get in that situation. Indiana wanted no part of it, so they just didn't really throw the ball. Youngstown State, kind of same thing. Now, in this game, yeah, it's going to – and they have a good running back, too, Notre Dame does in Estime. So we shall see. But that's my pick. I'm going to take Notre Dame getting the 3, but the Buckeyes do win outright in that game. All right, we move on to the NFL slate. We're not going to be picking Browns because we're going to save that for our big play game day preview, which we'll be doing out here at Burke Lakefront Airport beginning at 10 a.m. on Sunday. All right, I'm going to go with this one's intriguing to me. The Atlanta Falcons, Arthur Smith took a lot of heat in the offseason, took a lot of heat after the draft. What are you doing drafting Bijan Robinson? You've already got Algier and he rushed. You already led the league in rushing attempts. Now you bring in this cat. You need some help on the defense. Maybe what we didn't know is that he knew his defense was going to make some strides. He also knew he was going to make a few free agent additions on the defensive side of the ball, and they would add to the attack on the ground and using Bijan Robinson out of the backfield to take the pressure off Desmond Ridder, who clearly needs the pressure off of him. Now, all of a sudden, this formula for Arthur Smith is paying dividends, and they're playing good football. This is a team to be reckoned with. They go on the road to take on Dan Campbell and the Lions. The Lions are laying 3.5 points. I like the Falcons in this game, and I think I like the Falcons outright in an upset. And I like Detroit. I think they're going to be fine the rest of the year. But Amon-Ra St. Brown might not play. They're kind of concerned about that. I think the Falcons go on the road in Detroit and get a win against Dan Campbell and the Lions.
Yeah, I do like that matchup, Chico. Bijan versus Jahmyr Gibbs, the battle of the 2 first-round running backs from this year, is also an interesting storyline to me. But I'm still fascinated, perplexed, if you will, by the fact that Desmond Ridder is like an NFL quarterback right now. But to your point, they really have taken it in stride, and they have made it work up to this point thus far this season.
Chicago Bears could probably take some notes. I mean, try to make it. Arthur Smith has done a remarkable job. I know there's still a lot of season to be played, but there were a lot of people questioning that pick, and just wow, you've got holes on defense you got to fill. That defense looks really good as well. They look fast as hell.
With all that said, Chico, I'm going to take Detroit outright here, because I mean, in watching them, I love the way that their offense looks. I love how it seems like they're able to move the ball with ease. Now, missing Amon-Ra St. Brown could be a huge blow.
Yeah.
But they've had a number of other players step up.
Jared Goff looks so comfortable. He
looks
is
very competent.
He's a different player. Yeah. I mean, it's not just competent. He looks confident. He looks smooth. He looks like this is my team. And, I think there was a lot of pressure on it, obviously coming out of Cal. And I think with McVay, not that he's like Belichick, but McVay is really intense, and this is what we got to do. And it just, for whatever reason, it didn't work. And you would think somebody like Dan Campbell, who I know he's not calling the plays and whatnot, but you would think somebody like Dan Campbell, but they have found what's inside of Jared Goff and brought it out to get the best out of him, and he's playing like it. I mean, he is right now, one of the better quarterbacks so far through a couple of weeks in the NFL. So you like the Lions outright. I'm going to take the Falcons in an outright upset in Detroit. Chargers and Vikings. Wow, what is going on out in L.A.? And this isn't just, I want to be clear, this isn't just the Chargers defense, which came under fire last year for good reason, and they went out and they added some key components, and you've got Derwin James back there, and once again, you saw the Chargers get out to a lead, and then you saw Tennessee, who's coming to town Sunday against the Browns. They were able to come back. This is the story of the Chargers. In addition to that, though, this is what's interesting. Now, I don't know if Austin Eckler is going to play, but what's interesting about the Chargers now is that Herbert, he hasn't been bad. He's been good, but he hasn't been great in the situations where, okay, got to have it late, big throw. He hasn't made that throw. And so nobody's saying, I don't want to say I'm calling Justin Herbert a bum or he's struggling and he's the reason that they haven't won a game yet. But what I will say is they're paying him a lot of money. It was the most until Joey Burrow came along, and they're expecting him to make throws, key throws late in the game that he's not making right now. Chargers getting one on the road at Minnesota. This is extremely tied to what Austin Eckler does. So it's a tough one. I'm going to go with the notion that Austin Eckler plays. I like the Chargers in this game to get on the winning track, finally. But to say that I feel confident the way that defense is, and if they have another one of these games where they get out to a lead and then they blow it because of the defense, Brandon Staley is a defensive-minded coach. Brandon Staley's MO, if you will, is no explosive plays. Limit the explosive plays. Well, that's all you've seen from teams late in games to come back and beat them. So if they lose this game at Minnesota, oh boy, there's going to be some not so happy people out in Southern California probably calling for Staley's job.
So are both teams 0-2 right now?
Yes. No, the Vikings are.
They're 1-1.
Yeah, the Vikings are 1-1.
Chico, this is probably the hardest one to pick, maybe on this whole slate, because to me these are two franchises that lately have seemingly been snatching defeat from the jaws of victory.
Look at you. You were waiting to pounce on that.
Just chomping at the bit, Chico.
Vikings are 0-2. You are right. They are 0-2. I thought that's right because they had the week one blowout. Yeah, they are 0-2.
You like that? Okay. This is a really hard one for me to pick, but I'm going to go with the Chargers only because I expect Justin Herbert to be less unclutch of the two quarterbacks.
Keep talking.
In clutch moments, Chico. Kirk Cousins, to me, he's a big-time player in certain moments, but it feels like there are so many situations, Chico, where he's not able to sustain it for 60 minutes, and there's always something with the Vikings.
I think, first of all, their defense was kind of remade. I also think, what about Alexander Madison? Madison.
And now you bring in Cam Akers.
Yeah. I don't know. We had a lot of different scenarios and things happening, and I didn't see that one coming, that early in the season they'd have to. And now, of course, they're going to say, no, Madison's fine. He's not. So yeah, that is an interesting one. All right, two more to go. We've got Bill Landis coming your way. Oh, who did you take? I took that's right. You took the Chargers as well. Oh boy, Chargers, poor Chargers. Their fans, Bohm and I both have the Chargers going on the road.
Yeah, I
and
picked them
beating
last week.
Minnesota.
That didn't work out so well.
All right, final two games. The Steelers are 1-1. I don't have to tell you how that happened. The Steelers are 1-1. Their offense still, they didn't do anything offensively. Nothing. Didn't even get within the 30-yard. Didn't even get in the red zone. But yet they won for reasons we've already gone over here. Steelers going on the road to take on the Vegas Raiders and Jimmy Garoppolo. The Raiders are 3-point favorites in this game. I've got to go with the Raiders in this game. How can you? I don't trust the Steelers offense at home to go clear across the country. And I mean, Matt Canada's under fire. They don't know. Forget about, is Kenny Pickett the guy? You're still without Deontay Johnson. Now, is Najee Harris your guy, or is it Jaylen Warren? Give me the Raiders laying the 3 points. I know it's, man, I normally this is one where I say the Steelers, come on, they'll find a way. But I just haven't seen anything out of that offense. Give me the Raiders laying 3.
Yeah, Chico, it's very hard to have a lot of faith in that Steelers offense. And while their defense seems to be top tier, they're not going to be able to sustain any drives. And well, I never would have thought I'd be picking Josh McDaniels to win a game, but here we are. It just, like, all you need is semi-competent quarterback play, and you could probably take down Pittsburgh.
Is Devontae Adams is healthy for this game, right?
I do believe so.
Okay. All right, final one. Again, brought to you by Tipico, our Pick 6 segment here on a Friday edition of the Chico Borman Show. The Saints going on the road at Green Bay. Jordan Love has been okay, and then, he's made some really, you say rookie mistakes, but he's been on that bench for a while. Saints at Green Bay. The Packers are favored by 1.5. Who you got, Bohm? Who you got?
Well, Chico, I think you mentioned Jordan Love. I think he's been one of the pleasant surprises this season where, yes, he is still making some of those mistakes, but he's exceeded my expectations. Granted, my expectations for him were not all that high, but he has far exceeded them. With that said, there's no way I'm picking against that Saints team with the tandem of 2 Ohio State receivers.
So
Chico.
it's all
Olave,
about
Thomas. They're looking sharp.
They've got some guys on defense too that are. So are you just? Is it strictly an Ohio State pick? Is that what?
No,
this is?
I actually would pick the Saints because I don't expect Derek Carr to lose to Jordan Love. But I do.
Derek Carr played like crap last week. By the way,
I know, but he had some big time throws too.
No, he didn't.
Yeah, he did.
No, he didn't.
He had one. I recall specifically one great deep ball to Rashid. What is it? Rashid Shaheed.
Actually, you're right. Okay, I do remember.
Now Olave
that,
kind of bailed him out on one where he had that one where he tipped it to himself with one hand and came down with it. They might just pad the stats for Carr.
Okay, so you want the Buckeye-led New Orleans Saints.
That I do.
Getting him 1.5.
I'll take it all day.
I like the Saints as well. I do think Jordan Love going through some growing pains, still some health concerns. Is Aaron Jones 100%? So yeah, I'll go with the Saints in that game as well. All right. Speaking of Buckeyes, because of course Bohm had to make that the transition. It had to be something Ohio State related. Big game tomorrow in South Bend, tomorrow night in South Bend, Indiana. The Ohio State Buckeyes and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Last time Notre Dame beat Ohio State. As old as you people think I am, I was decades away from even being a thought in my parents' eye. 1936. Let's bring in our buddy Bill Landis. Covers Ohio State, does it very well for Rivals, and of course, Dotting the I's, and of course, the podcast as well, which we'll tell you more about with Doug LeMaurice and Birmingham and Austin Ward. Bill, this one's a biggie. I'm going to start with what Ryan Day said most recently. Are you buying when Ryan Day says we are going to let it rip? First of all, is his definition of letting it rip what our definition of letting it rip is? And do you think he will let it rip?
It's funny because Ryan Day used similar rhetoric going into the Peach Bowl last year against Georgia. and all of us grabbed onto it. He was talking about being bold and being aggressive and how they weren't going to leave anything to chance and just sort of go out there and let it all hang out. And then they did that in that game. And we were like, well, that was awesome. Why don't you do that all the time? And I think he is aware of that discussion. And so that I don't know. Did he say it because he thinks that's what people want to hear, or did he say it, let it rip because they truly intend on doing so in South Bend tomorrow night? I would hope that he did sort of learn a lesson, for lack of a better phrase, from last year when I thought that he just approached some of these big games like way too tight, and that had an adverse effect on his players. And this is obviously a big game too. So I'm inclined to believe him and trust that he is taking that big game approach that they found in the Peach Bowl last year, and hopefully they bottled it up and can bring it out when they need to bring it out, and they'll try to do it against the Irish tomorrow night. And that means, I think, being who they are. Like it's being aggressive, it's throwing the ball around, it's using your playmakers, it's not lining up with 2 or 3 tight ends on the field and just trying to run it down the team's throat because you're trying to prove a point. It's leaning into your strengths and then trying to exploit them.
So it was easy to say let it rip when you had C.J. Stroud, who ended up being the number 2 pick in the draft.
Yeah.
And I know fans, like you said, fans usually want, let it rip. You've got Marvin Harrison Jr., you've got Emeka Ibuka and Cade Stover, Julian Fleming. Let it rip. But this is not C.J. Stroud. This is Kyle McCord. They found, first of all, answer this question. When people say, okay, the Ohio State found something in that second quarter, in the second half of that second quarter against Western Kentucky, what was it specifically you think that they found?
I actually think it was like maybe less offensively and more on defense. But if you're asking me about the offense in particular, just operating quickly, I think they play with more tempo. They had a couple one-play scoring drives, so it's hard to say. But even the drives that weren't one-play scoring drives, they operated quicker, and I think that matters for this offense. I think it helps Kyle McCord to simplify things and play fast. So they did that on offense, and then in defense, I think they just found another gear in terms of making splash plays and getting tackles for loss and generating a couple of fumbles. So they had not really been doing that up until that point. So both of those things, you're trying to take the Notre Dame tomorrow night.
Okay, you brought up a key word there in simplify things, and I want to go back to the running game a bit. They do a lot, or at least they did to start the year, and I don't even know if you say that they did this predominantly last year too, where they call it gap blocking, which my understanding is, I'm not going to pretend to be some offensive line savant, where it's much more confusing for an offensive line, but certainly it makes sense. It would be much more confusing for an offensive line that's new. Did they change anything there and go back to more of a zone scheme? And could we see more of that against Notre Dame as opposed to that? And why is that gap block scheme more, I guess, difficult, complex, if you know?
Well, a lot of those gap schemes involve pulling offensive linemen, and it's just not something that Ohio State asks their players to do a ton. So when they do it, it does look a little clunky. It was, actually kind of effective for them against Indiana. I would say that those kind of runs were better for them against Indiana than the zone runs were. And then you saw them the second week against Youngstown State. They were probably more zone oriented and running more inside, which is probably more interesting than what kind of runs they were. Not trying to hit the outside so much against Youngstown State. But then last week, they kind of bounced back and went back to more of their like perimeter runs and the stretch play, which has been a staple of Ryan Day's offense. And that's what he wants to be. He likes that play because it's good for play action, and that's ultimately what they're trying to get to. They're trying to get teams to over commit to stopping those kind of wide zone runs and then throw it over their head or throw it out to a tight end kind of in the flat with a lot of space to operate. Cade Stover's been very good at that. So it'll be interesting. I thought that we were seeing them trend more toward being more of a downhill inside running team heading into that Western Kentucky game, and then that didn't happen. But Western Kentucky's defense is also, one, not very good, and two, kind of unique in the way they line up with their front. So in hindsight, that was probably a game where they could just do whatever they want and it would work, and that seemed to be the case. Whatever they choose to do against Notre Dame tomorrow night, I think will be indicative of who they want to be running the football for the rest of the year, especially in big games, obviously. So that is one of the things I'm most curious about. But even I don't I hope that Ohio State's not going into this game thinking like, well, we got to run the football, we got to control the clock, because I don't think that's a winning recipe for Ohio State right now. I think the offensive line is still feeling its way through some things when it runs the ball, and are much better situated, I think, to use their receivers and use Kyle McCord than they are to try to line up and pound Notre Dame.
Talking to Bill Landis, follow him on Twitter at Bill Landis25. Of course, covers the Buckeyes for Rivals, and of course, dotting the I. Also, the podcast at _OSU. Very, very good stuff there. Okay, so this Notre Dame team, completely, for the most part, completely different from a year ago. Obviously, it starts at that quarterback position where it should start. Sam Hartman is a guy, maybe he was around in 1936 because he's been around, played a lot of games for Wake Forest. Let's start there, Bill. On the Irish side of the ball, on the offensive side of the ball, a very experienced quarterback that Marcus Freeman definitely, and that team believes in.
I saw this is a side note, but I saw a tweet from someone, I can't remember who, earlier today, that was like, Ohio State's played we'll have played Sam Hartman, Sean Clifford, and Stetson Bennett in the last 3 years. Like the combined ages of the three of them was like 75 years old or something like that. It's kind of crazy.
Stetson Bennett too.
Sam Hartman does take this offense to another level. I think that will, like last year, Notre Dame came to Ohio Stadium, I think, unsure of their quarterback situation and not particularly confident in it. And that is, it's a 180 now. I don't think they could be more confident in their quarterback play coming into this game, because Sam Hartman has been around forever, as we've said, but he's been productive too. I think he's the all-time leader in passing yardage in the ACC in that Wake Forest offense that is unique but was productive. And he was the trigger man for one of the better offenses in the country while he was there. It's a different offense at Notre Dame. It's more pro style. The reason he's there is because he wants to show the NFL that he can operate a system like that. But so far, it's looked pretty good. I don't think they scare you at receiver, nor are they quite as good at tight end as they have been in the past, but they're solid, I think, at both of those positions. Their running back, Aldrich Estime, is very good.
Yep.
They have a little bit of depth there, and their offensive line is good, and I think has the ability to be great. Their left tackle, Joe Alt, might be the best left tackle in college football, and the rest of the line, while not quite that good, is still pretty solid. So it's a good outfit on that side of the ball. Like last year, I think all Notre Dame could hope to do is run the ball enough to keep it away from Ohio State. And I guess you could say they did that, but they're designed to do much more than that this year. They're much more explosive this year than they were last year. I think they're already, if you look at like plays of 30 yards or more, I think they're already halfway to the number they had in all of last season. So they can do that to you. And Sam Hartman's the reason because of it. He's super confident. He doesn't have an arm that wows you, but he's aggressive with it. Has pretty good accuracy when he has time to throw. And behind that line, he usually does have a ton of time to throw.
So yesterday on the show, we talked to Chad Withrow with Outkick, and he's a big college football guy as well, mainly SEC, but certainly knows his stuff. And they had he and his partner had Lou Holtz on, and of course Lou Holtz going to have a little bit of a bias. That's okay. But Coach Holtz said, "I like Notre Dame in this game because I think up front on the line of scrimmage they're going to win the battle." And you mentioned Joe Alt, one of the best, maybe the best left tackle in the game. But ultimately, one of the things I know we've talked about and you've written about on the defensive side of the ball is, okay, when are we going to see Tui Maloau? When are we going to see Sawyer? When are we going to see Hall getting some pressure? Now, some of that was scheme dictated. Indiana wanted no part of even throwing the football to allow Ohio State that. Does Coach Holtz have a legitimate prediction there in terms of the line of scrimmage being won by Notre Dame in this game?
Yeah, I mean, I think if Notre Dame wins, that's why they win. But I don't think the advantage is quite as stark as maybe Lou Holtz described it. And I have heard a lot of that other places, like we're talking to my friend and yours, Ari Wasserman, and he thinks that like Notre Dame is Michigan light, and like I do not think they are that.
Interesting.
I think Joe Alt is very good. I think the rest of that line is nowhere near good enough for people to say that. I think it's who Notre Dame wants to be and maybe believes they are, but I don't know if they're a team that's going to line up and bully people. They've run the ball well. They've not really played stout defenses yet this year, and Ohio State's defense has looked very good through 3 games. And I think the defensive line, while it's not generating a ton of sacks and a ton of tackles for loss, Also wasn't giving up a boatload of yards, like per carry. I think they'll meet at the line of scrimmage and they win a lot. And I think the interior of Ohio State's defensive line probably has an advantage over the interior of Notre Dame's offensive line. So there'll be good matchups with JT Tuimoloau or Jack Sawyer or whoever's playing end when they go up against Joe Alt or Blake Fisher, the right tackle. But if that's an advantage for Notre Dame on the outside, I think the advantage is Ohio State's on the inside. So I'm not saying that's a wash, but I think there's ways for Ohio State to work around the strengths of Notre Dame's offensive line. And I don't like the advantages there. I don't think it's because Ohio State's weak at defensive end. I just think it's because Notre Dame is pretty good at tackle. But Ohio State's ends are good. And I do think the linebackers are good and they're going to be keyed in on the run. They're going to trust their secondary to cover Notre Dame's tight ends and receivers down the field because I don't think there's anyone there that really scares you. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't think it is like definitely an advantage for Notre Dame in this game. I think Ohio State's defense has played too well to this point for us to just assume that.
So we talk about what will be the game plan for Ryan Day on the offensive side of the ball, and will he really let it rip? Is Jim Knowles dialing some things up in this game? Is this an aggressive game plan against Sam Hartman and the Irish?
I don't know. I think possibly. Jim Knowles has talked a lot this year about changing up that approach a little bit and trusting the fact that more often than not, he has more talent than the other team. So maybe he doesn't have to be super aggressive, but he's still going to pick his spots and try to get after Sam Hartman. I think ideally for Ohio State, a guy like Michael Hall at defensive tackle and Tyleik Williams at defensive tackle are causing enough havoc on their own in the middle of that defensive line that Jim Knowles doesn't have to blitz all the time. And then he can have a few more guys in zone coverage or, just feel less of an impetus to send linebackers in passing situations, but they do have to affect Sam Hartman. So if the line is not doing its job, then you do have to ratchet up that pressure. And then if that happens, we'll see. I think that in some ways might play into Notre Dame's hand a little bit because they do want to kind of try to suck the defense in and then throw the ball over the top. And Sam Hartman is not afraid to hang in there and get hit while he's delivering a pass. So it'll be a balance for Jim Knowles. If I had to guess, I think he will be probably slightly less aggressive than we saw him be in some of the bigger games last year.
All right, so I got to put you on the spot here to before we let you go. How does this one play out tomorrow night in South Bend as Ohio State remain undefeated?
Yeah, I have Ohio State winning in a close game, 35-31. I think like Notre Dame is good. I think Notre Dame is deservedly in the top 10. The talent advantage here is certainly Ohio State's. I think Ohio State's A game wins 10 times out of 10. How confident can you be in Ohio State playing its A game? I think is a fair question. I think we more or less saw that last week against Western Kentucky, but certainly did not see that the first 2 weeks of the season, especially on the offensive side of the ball. So picking a win here, I think is projecting a little bit of confidence in that offense and that they did figure some things out last week and will come to South Bend with a good aggressive plan to take advantage of their athletes in space. So I think that's what we're going to see. I think it is competitive probably throughout the entire thing. But Ohio State, I think, just has a little too much firepower for Notre Dame to handle. So I'm picking Ohio State in a close one.
All right. He is Bill Landis. Follow him on Twitter if you are not already at Bill Landis25. Again, obviously for Rivals, you can find all his stuff there. I am a proud subscriber. I get the dotting the I's. Just had a notification from them the other day, and I love what I get from those guys, Bill and his cohorts. And, of course, don't forget the podcast at _OSU. That's really good stuff. Doug Maurice now contributing, formerly with Cleveland.com. So, Bill, we appreciate it. Great work as always, and should be a good one tomorrow night. We will definitely recap it with you next weekend. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. See you.
All right, Bill Landis, again, joining us here on the Chico Borman Show. We'll take a quick time out. We come back. Wrap things up. Last thoughts, final thoughts before the weekend on the Browns and Titans. Also, there was some news outside of the world of sports that I think does affect myself and Bohm. I'll explain when we come back. It's the Chico Borman Show with you till 2 o'clock right here on the Big Play Sports Network. Alrighty, welcome back. Chico Borman Show. So there you have it. Bill Landis from Rivals thinks Buckeyes prevail, but a close game. I think that's really the consensus for a lot of people, that this will – and let's face it, Ohio State in these games and a lot of games under Ryan Day, you don't see them just come out and blow the doors off of somebody. And this is a Notre Dame team, and this is very important. Not just Sam Hartman, but experience all across the board, up front on that offensive line. And Marcus Freeman, another year. Last couple of years, that's a tough ask. And you really think about that, like, a guy trying to get acclimated to new surroundings in one of the most hallowed places in the country as far as college football. Expectations are sky high, and you're still trying to recruit, you're still trying to get that level of talent that you need in there. I think Sam Hartman was a huge get for them, but another year for Marcus Freeman to take a breath and go, okay, hey, we're at home, I've got a veteran quarterback, and I've been here before. I think it is. I think it's going to be a good game. I really do think it's going to be a good game. As far as the Browns and the Titans on Sunday, a game that the Browns, I say, should win. Now, we got the news. Bohm, you just told me that Mary Kay is reporting that Greg Newsome is out.
Yeah, she said that Newsome has been ruled out for Sunday's matchup with the Titans.
Okay, that hurts.
It does.
Now, you're not facing a juggernaut passing game and Ryan Tannehill. And I wonder if we see, will we see Malik Willis? They've got Malik Willis. They've got Will Levis. Heard Chad give that. I love that story about Will Levis. Asking Peyton Manning, all these guys are asking Peyton Manning about, how do you read this coverage and that coverage? They're like, well, you got a question for Peyton? Yeah, how do you expand your brand? And what's your secret for getting your brand out there? He's like, be a good quarterback first. And then
that's such a Bo Callahan-esque red flag.
Ooh, look at you. Nice name drop there, Bo. Nice name drop. But Tennessee's offense and passing game isn't that explosive, where I think, Greg Newsome's going to be largely missed. But, again, it feels like it comes back to, yes, you have a great back in Derrick Henry, and not just running the football. He can catch, and he's burned us a few times catching the ball out of the backfield. But, how well does this offense Mike Vrabel and company is going to have something cooked up for Deshaun Watson on offense. And, you've got a great pass rush. You've got a good secondary that's very, I think, underrated, and actually a ball-hawking secondary. So, turnovers, all the things that you say, the intangibles that have to go their way, same thing here. But now without Nick Chubb, how different does that offense look? They are the better team, but we'll see how, they've recovered. Does Kevin Stefanski believe in Deshaun Watson enough to let him have the reins? Speaking of, what Ryan Day will do with Kyle McCord, because we've heard him say that that's the case with Deshaun Watson, but is it really the case fully 100%? And does Kevin Stefanski have to do that in order for this offense to take that next step? Certainly now without Nick Chubb. So we'll see how that goes. Do not forget, coming up this Sunday, we will be live here at Burke Lakefront Airport. The Big Play game day show will be coming your way 10 until noon, and then, of course, kickoff just after 1 o'clock. All right, I wanted to get to this, Bohm. Do we know if I heard yesterday that the Writers' Guild strike, was possibly close to ending yesterday?
Did you? I didn't catch wind of that one.
You did? Okay. I didn't hear it was over, but I heard it was apparently they made enough progress. They felt confident enough to say it could end as soon as today, which is always funny. As soon as today. Well, of course, it's not going to be any sooner than today. We don't know how much longer after today, though. But, Bohm, we have a lot of shows that you and I Like, how does this affect, our Law and Order and SVU and Liv and Elliot and of course our guy Voight. Voight's probably telling the right, like, let's go. Come on. What are we doing?
My office now.
Get me my Marlboro Reds. Let's go.
Burgess.
We got a canvas. You guys got to figure this out. We got a canvas here.
What's going on here?
How do you think it affects it? Like, does the fall season, because the fall season's here, do they have stuff written, like, to get going? Like, I don't know how. I figured you might have more insight on this than I do because you're an entertainment guy. Like, do you think they already have stuff written?
It's interesting that you ask that, Chico, because I think a lot of these shows probably wrapped filming before the strike actually started.
For the entire. Now, see, I know that's not true because I did hear that. They have done some filming, but not all of it. Like, so that would lead you to believe that
they're going to have to finish it.
Yeah, they left some of the writing out there too. Like, how many, like, I'd love to know how many episodes are they ready for if the fall season is set to begin, I don't know, let's say it's later this month. I would think it's got to be right about now, right?
We got to get Dick Wolf on the show. Just ask him, because that's a great question for Dick Wolf.
We got to get Keith Moore. Oh,
yeah.
What's it feel?
Could you imagine him checking in on StreamYard?
They don't need writing for. They do write some stuff.
It's exciting though that we're finally going to have our writers back. Maybe the show will pick up steam.
Yes. By the way, speaking of shows and entertainment and whether it's real or fake. Does, like, wrestling, and I'm not being a smartass when I say this, does wrestling have, like, are they a part, does that affect them?
We know it's planned,
I mean,
but the question is, are there writers that are part of this organization involved?
Like, I don't think the writers are, I don't think it's, like, next level brain surgery stuff they're writing for the wrestling. Like, hey, have him cut his forehead with a razor blade under the table. Okay, yeah, we'll go ahead and do that. And it doesn't strike me like the WWE writers doesn't strike me as like a union per se. But, like, it is scripted. I'm not being an ass when I say that. Like, I used to love wrestling. I don't anymore. But, like, that is written. Is that included in the guild?
And I don't know everything, the whole story for sure, but I do know that some of it is concocted out of the minds of the actual wrestlers themselves. Because I've heard some stories of them discussing it when they decided how things were going to go.
So you're saying, like, they improvise on the go. They ad lib.
There's
and
definitely
they do their whole
an improvisational element to it, but a lot of times the outcome, the wrestlers already know, like, going into it, how it's going to end.
Do we think Frank Voight improvises on Chicago PD?
He doesn't strike me as a big improv guy. I think it's just, make sure he gets his pack of cigs before every scene.
It's all right. I know some people that don't watch the show because of him. They don't like him. They don't like the
I've
the
heard
voice.
That. Yeah,
it's crazy.
The scraggly voice. I've heard that. I think it's kind of funny. I wonder if that's what he sounded like 20, 30 years ago.
Trudy, give me my messages. Let's go. All right, we're out of time. I think we ended on a really good note. So hopefully the writers figure it out. So, yeah, as Bohm said, maybe we can have a better show. I don't know. Maybe it's all connected.
So how come Dollar Dog Nick isn't on strike right now?
How do you know he's not, Bohm?
Touché.
You don't know.
Aha.
All right. Thank you to Brad Ward and Bill Landis joining us here on this Friday edition of the Chico Borman Show. Do not forget, Sunday morning, 10 a.m., rain or shine. We're out there, kids. Need a W. Not expecting the way it played out Monday night in Pittsburgh, but sorry, it did. And we're going to be the place. Big play. Your game day headquarters here at Burke Lakefront Airport. We'll have food. We'll have prizes. We'll be talking about it. We'll have great guests for you. It's going to be fun. It's going to be your place to be before the big game kicks off around 1 o'clock. So for Michael Bohm, Bill Landis joined us, as I said, Brad Ward, all of us here at Big Play Sports. Going to be a lot of good football. Enjoy your weekend. We'll talk to you on Sunday. See ya.